guys, welcome back to the Big Sew Along. I'm Ginny, and as always, I thank you very much for choosing to spend some time with me. This week, as promised, I have a quick tutorial for you on how to make this really cute button front Zelda. Zelda is a Tina Givens pattern that I have made many times. We'll get to that in a minute. Before we do, I had a couple of things I wanted to follow up on. First of all, a couple of weeks ago, Christine came up to Ann Arbor from Indiana to go to the Ann Arbor Art Festival or Art Fair. I can't remember what it's called. If any of you guys have ever been to that, it's an enormous art fair here in Michigan. It's very, I mean, people come from all over. It's huge. I was only able to meet with Christine for a couple of hours. It was really lovely to meet one of you guys in person. The only other person I've met from this channel in person actually is Kathy, who I met once when I was working at Haberman's, and then once last, like the winter time, sometime we went out for coffee. Anyways, Christine, aside from giving me an adorable pair of earrings that I didn't wear today, I apologize, Christine, but I have worn them and I love them. Christine also gave me this quick sew pattern. Quick Sew 3701. I think this is a pattern from the 80s or 90s. Let's see. Oh, copyright 2012. Look at me being way off base. Anyways, these are like a sort of a harem-y kind of pant. It's right up my alley, and I'm really excited to make these. So I just wanted to say thank you, Christine, and ask if anybody else has made this pattern. Let me know in the comments below. Speaking of patterns, Alana suggested, after she saw our inspiration video, she suggested this pattern from Frux Studios called the Garden Dress. It's got pin tucks all along the front and back at the top, and it's fuller in the bottom. I'm in love with this pattern, and I can't believe this escaped my notice before now. I ordered this pattern right away, and then I sent it to the printer, so hopefully I'll have that in the next few days that I can work on that. Let you guys know how it goes. But again, if anyone else has made that, let me know. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on that. Okay, then the other thing I was saying from the week before, we were talking about big pants, and about one of you guys commented, I can't remember now, Susan? One of you guys commented that you liked wearing Converse with your big pants, and then Faith sent me this over on Instagram. This is a new design from Converse. It's a platform with a really cute floral print. I don't usually go for florals, but in a shoe, I might just do that. I think these are super cute. And yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know these are out here in case you hadn't already seen them. And last but not least, in regards to, again, to our inspiration video from last week, you guys came up with so many really good suggestions for printing on fabrics, and I just wanted to say how much I really appreciate that. I am going to the art supply store this weekend to get some supplies and look for some of the things that you guys suggested, and so hopefully I'll have some experimenting to share with you somewhere down the line. But anyways, again, you guys, great suggestions. And if any of you are also interested in doing some printing or painting on fabric, go back to last week's video and read the comments, because there are just a ton of really good suggestions in there. Okay, now, oh yeah, you know what else? I told you guys last week when we started talking about this, this button front Tina Givens, that I had made this once before. I've shown it a gazillion times here, and I couldn't find the video, but Rodeo 5206 found it. It was my 1-year anniversary, and I will link that for you guys down below. Meanwhile, let's get on with today's video. Let me just say, before we get into the tutorial on how to make this a button front, you don't have to use this tutorial for the Zelda dress. You can literally use it for any top or dress that doesn't have an opening at the front. Additionally, just to be completely transparent, I have altered my Zelda dress to fit me the way I like it already before I did this button front hack. So just be aware that, if I can remember correctly, I changed the neckline considerably. It's got like a narrow sort of lower neckline, and the armhole is quite large on that. So just be aware of that so that you know what you're getting into. Make sure the dress fits you before you do any hacking to it. Also, this dress usually has a ruffle around the bottom. I obviously chose not to do that for either my original button front or this one. In terms of fabric, I use this. This is just a cotton, it's like a pink on pink gingham. And I'm pretty sure I got this at Stone Mountain & Daughter maybe last summer or the summer before. Okay, enough chit chat. So here we go to the button front tutorial. This is our Zelda slip dress pattern. And just to be clear, before we get started, I want to point out that you can see I have already made some pretty severe alterations to this. I changed the neckline, the armhole, and I also narrowed the overall width a little bit. So just so you know, this one has already been altered to fit me the way I like, so we're clear. So we're going to start by, you can see here I've already added some paper to the front edge, and I use brown, so hopefully you guys will be able to see a little better. Normally I would just use tissue paper, but hopefully this will be easier for you guys to see. So let's start with our buttons. I'm using these, which are 1/2 inch buttons. The thing to know is that our buttons are going to want to sit right here on the center front of our dress. So my buttons are 1/2 inch, and I want about 1/4 inch for my button band. I want about 1/4 inch on either side of my button. So that's 1/2 inch. 2/4 is 1/2. So this first section, the button band, is going to be 1/2 inch, which is the size of my button, plus 1/2 inch, so I can have 1/4 inch on either side. That means that that button band is going to be 1 inch. So half of that, 1/2 inch, will be on the dress. Will be right here. And you're going to go ahead and draw that on there all the way down your pattern. Okay, the other half is going to be on our extension here. So we need 1/2 inch over here. So you can see this should be between here, the line we just drew, and the line we're drawing right now should be 1 inch. Alright, so this 1 inch right here is our button band. Now we need our facing, which is going to be the same distance as this, plus a seam allowance. So I'm going to make mine 1.5 inches. I'm going to make a 1 inch facing and a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that's going to be 1.5 inches. Alright, so now we have our button band and our facing, and this is excess. We're going to cut this off. Up here at the neckline, we're going to cut this straight across from this point of our neck. Just like that. Now we're going to go ahead and cut this out. And now we're pretty much ready to cut our pattern out. Now the thing is, when you do this, you're going to want to be sure when you cut your fabric that you put a notch right here at the center front, and right here, this will be your fold line. And you're going to do that at the top and also at the bottom. So right here and right here. Notches at the center front and at the fold line. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get this whole pattern cut out, and then we'll be back. Okay, I forgot. Before we cut this out, I want you to remember that this that we just did just applies to the front. You have the same pattern piece for the front and the back. So for your back, you can just fold this piece we put on here over to the back and cut this on the fold as you normally would. Alright, now we're good. So here we have our dress front, and I'm just going to use this as an example to show you really quickly. You can see this is my facing. Whatever you're going to do with this edge, if you're going to fold it under or serge it off or whatever you want to do, you want to do that first. And then we're going to go ahead and figure out how to put our bindings on here for the neck. So on this method, we're going to fold this to the right side of the dress on our fold line. Like this. And we're just going to baste that down. And you're going to do the same thing at the hem. Once we have that done, we're going to put our bias facing on all the way around. And when you come around to the front, you're going to put it just over the outside edge. My facing is bigger than it should be because I did not finish this edge for this sample. But in any case, you want your bias facing to come inside your facing, but not all the way to the edge, if that makes sense. Then we're just going to go ahead and sew that down, and we're going to sew all the way to the front of our top. And it's going to look something like that. So I'm not going to press this and sew it down or anything, but just so you can see what happens. In this case, you're just going to fold this right side out. Sorry, wrong side out. Fold the facing to the back. And then this bias facing is going to sit like this. And you can just stitch this down. In this case, it's really easy to stitch the facing all the way down and then go straight down the front of your shirt, around the hem, back up the other side. And just so you can get an idea, it's going to look something like that from the right side. Okay, so the other option, and the one I'm going to do today, is this is the front of my shirt, and in this case I have folded my facing towards the wrong side. This is my actual shirt, so you can see I've folded my 1/2 inch seam allowance under there, and I'm going to fold that all to the inside. And now we're going to go ahead and stitch this down all the way down the outside of our facing on both sides. Once we have our facing sewn down on both sides, we're going to take our bias tape, and I think this is 1.5 inches wide I'm using. It doesn't matter, whatever size you want to use. I'm going to fold under my 1/4 inch on one side, and the other side is going to get pinned to the right side of our shirt. Alright, once we get that pinned on, we're just going to go and sew that down all the way around. You just want to be sure you have a little bit left over on the front edges. And just to repeat what I was saying, my bias bindings here are 1.5 inches wide to start with, and my seam allowances on these are going to be 3/8 of an inch. Once we have our bias binding on there, we're going to press that up towards the binding, and then we're just going to fold the binding towards the front, making sure that the folded edge down here covers your seam line. And then we're going to sew this straight across, right, so it matches right up with the edge, the front edge there. And you're going to do that on both sides. And again, we're going to do the same thing on the hem. Once we have that done, we're just going to clip off this excess here on both sides. We're going to flip those to the wrong side, make sure we get a nice point on there. And it should look like that. I have to push that out with my point turner in a minute, but you see what I'm saying. So now you're just going to put this around here. You're going to stitch in the ditch all the way around like this. You're going to do the same thing, again, the same thing on the hem. Finish your armholes. Once I get all of that done, I'm going to come back and we'll talk about placing our buttonholes. The very last thing we need to talk about is getting our buttonholes on here. So if you remember, we made our button band 1 inch wide from here to the stitch line, which means that 1/2 inch is the center of our button band. That's where we're going to, I marked that all the way down my top so we know where to put our buttons. This very first one, I like to put horizontally because I want it to be as close as possible to the seam line without actually hitting it. So this one, it's right below the seam allowance on my neck binding, so that when I put my buttonhole on it, it won't get caught on anything. After that, I go vertically, and for these, I think I'm going to use 2.5 inches between buttons. You can put them as close or as far apart as you like. I'm going to use 2.5 inches. So my first button is right here. 1, 2.5 is right here. My buttonholes, your buttonholes are going to be a little bit bigger than your actual buttons. obviously, because it's got stitching on both ends. I've done a couple of tests, and my buttonholes measure 3/4 of an inch. So this is the top of my button, and 3/4 of an inch down is right here, and that will be the bottom of that buttonhole. And then from that, I'm going to measure 2.5 inches down, which will be 1, 2.5 is right here. And then 3/4 of an inch down from that is the bottom of that buttonhole, and that is right here, etc., etc. And then once you get all your buttonholes on there, you're going to put your buttons on, and we're done. So there you have it. I hope you guys found that helpful. I would be really excited to hear if you guys make one of these, and let me know how it turns out. Next week, I am going to do a quick video on some other summer tops I have been working on in the last few weeks. I'm really excited to share them with you because I think most of these patterns are patterns that I've had for a long time but have never actually used. So that will be next week, and until then, I wish you all happy sewing.